The Afghan sky smouldered in the haze of distant explosions, a grey dust hanging heavy like a shroud over the shattered village. Private Jake walked through what used to be homes, fallen walls, twisted rebar, the ash of hope scattered across the ground. His squad's orders had been simple. Sweep the area, flush out any enemy fighters. But after the battle, an eerie silence blanketed everything, until a faint, pained whimper cut through the stillness. Jake froze, heart pounding. He followed the sound into a corner piled high with broken bricks and mangled metal. There, half buried, lay Rex, his 9 partner. The chain around Rex's neck was knotted tight, as if someone had left him there on purpose, to die alone among the ruins. Ha! His grey-brown fur was matted with blood and grime. Jake sank to his knees beside his brother in arms, the scent of gunpowder and earth swirling around them. How could any soldier leave a comrade behind like this? Jake's hands trembled as he brushed debris from Rex's face, meeting those familiar, trusting eyes. A deep gash ran down Rex's foreleg. Another jagged wound pocked his side. Likely shrapnel. Blood had already begun to harden like glass across his fur. But the dog recognized Jake, giving a soft wag of his tail. "Hang in there, Rex," Jake whispered, voice barely more than a breath. He fumbled out his shirt, tore it into strips, and bound the wounds as best he could. Each pull of cloth and knot reflected the bond they'd forged on countless missions, through sandstorms, ambushes, and the deadly hunt for Wide. With painstaking effort, Jake lifted Rex into his arms, the dog's weight nearly buckling his knees, yet he refused to set him down. They were brothers, after all. If Rex could trust Jake to follow a scent into danger, Jake would trust himself to carry Rex to safety, even if it killed him. Jake burst from the rubble zone onto uneven ground, pockmarked with bomb craters. Each laboured step rattled his lungs, sweat stung his eyes as he ran. Behind him, sporadic gunfire crackled, enemy snipers still hunting targets of opportunity. Jake didn't look back. Rex's panting filled his ears, a desperate rhythm against the pounding of his own heart. He thought of every second wasted as a second too many. Finally, through the gloom, the fortified gate of the base glowed like a beacon. Jake threw himself forward, shouting, "A medic! Vet! Please! He's bleeding out!" The guard at the gate stared in disbelief, mouth open. As Jake gently laid Rex on a stretcher that appeared as if by magic, he barked, "Hurry! Call the vet!" Every heartbeat after felt like an eternity, as Rex was loaded into a waiting jeep, the engine's roar echoing his racing pulse. Inside the medical bay, chaos reigned. Boots scurried on concrete, voices overlapped in frantic jargon, monitors beeped irregular warnings. "There's an infection setting in." Her voice tightened. "He needs surgery, now. But our facilities are limited." Jake stood to the side, drenched in sweat and blood, heart lodged in his throat. The thought of losing Rex, a partner who had sniffed out bombs and saved his life, was unbearable. "Please," Jake choked out, eyes glistening. "Do whatever it takes." The bay was repurposed into an operating theatre. A single overhead lamp cast harsh shadows on Rex's pale flank. Sarah scrubbed in, then turned to Jake. Made you grab me the forceps, please." Without hesitation, Jake scrubbed his hands and donned a mask, though he'd never set a paw bone in his life. The steady tick of the heart monitor matched the pounding in his temples as Sarah made the first incision. Jake passed instruments, dabbed sponges, followed her. Every command. Each snip of the scissors sent a jolt through Jake. This was nothing like boots on the ground. Yet he found focus in every task, driven by the simple truth that Rex had never abandoned him. Hours passed in that fluorescent white room until at last Sarah whispered, "Stitch!" She stepped back, shoulders slumped. "It's done." Now we wait. Rex survived the night. Jake didn't. He drifted between dozing in a folding chair and leaning close to Rex, murmuring stories of their training days, of the arid wind whipping at their faces, the thrill of detection, the comfort of a wagging tail at dawn. He stayed when others left, his palm pressed to Rex's stitched fur. And by morning, the dog's breathing steadied. His eyes, once clouded with shock, flickered with recognition. A faint wag of his tail greeted Jake, and hope bloomed in the gloom of the medical bay. Yet beneath relief, a question gnawed. Who would betray Rex so cruelly? Jake retraced every step of the mission in his mind. No stray explosion could have trapped Rex under those bricks, and no enemy patrol would chain him and walk away. Someone on their own side had done it. He remembered Captain Harris's harsh words after a previous operation. How he called Rex a liability when an ambush had cost lives. The dog had barked a warning that went unheeded, and Harris blamed Rex for the tragedy. Jake began quietly interviewing medics, mechanics, anyone who had hopped across the rubble field. One soldier, a young private, admitted seeing Harris dragging something resembling a dog carcass toward a pile of wreckage after the fight. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed. This was no accident. Armed with his suspicions, Jake sought Harris in the mess hall. The captain sat alone, black coffee in hand, oblivious chatter all around. Captain, Jake said, voice level but firm. What happened to Rex? Harris's laugh was cold enough to freeze the air. And my pet, you're obsessed. Got any proof, private or just wild accusations? Jake pressed on, recalling Harris's threat. I'll deal with that dog. The room's murmur dimmed as soldiers sensed the storm brewing. Harris's eyes flicked dangerously, but he shrugged. You don't have time for nonsense. Tension crackled like static. Jake knew he needed more than words. For days, Jake worked in the shadows. He measured footprints in dried mud, pocketed a rusted chain link, coaxed the timid private into a written statement. Each scrap of evidence built a mountain too heavy to ignore. He took his dossier to Colonel Davies, by rank an ally of order, but also a guardian of the chain of command. Davies leafed through the pages, brow furrowed. Interesting, he said, but without smoking gun proof. He trailed off, loyalty to his officers, outweighing the case for Rex. Oh, Rex. I can't pursue this further. Jake felt his anger harden like armor. If the system wouldn't move, he'd have to stir the hearts of those around him. At the next base assembly, Jake stepped forward as murmurs rippled through the rows of soldiers. He spoke of Rex's faithful service, of every mission where the dog had risked his life, and the cruelty of leaving him chained. Some faces shifted, weighed by guilt. Others looked away, fearing reprisal. In the tense hush, Harris rose to brand Jake a liar, accusing him of insubordination. Just then, a low, determined growl echoed through the hall. Rex, weak but resolute, limped in, eyes fixed on Harris. The sight of the wounded dog, tail stiff with defiance, ignited a roar of support. A mood that had once been stifling fear turned into fierce solidarity. Colonel Davies, hearing the shift, sighed and announced an official inquiry. No sooner had the wheels of justice begun to turn than alarms shattered the morning calm. Enemy fighters were overrunning the perimeter. Bullets tore into sandbags. Smoke choked the air. Jake and Rex, still frail, rose to defend their home. Amidst the hail of fire, Harris, cornered by his own shame, saw a chance to bury the scandal forever. He drew his sidearm on Jake, intent on silencing him. But Rex, driven by unbreakable loyalty, lunged at Harris, tackling him into the dust. In the scuffle, a stray round struck Rex's flank. Jake dropped to his knees, cradling his partner as chaos swirled around them. Other soldiers swarmed, subduing Harris and pushing back the attackers. Say yes. Oh! As Rex's breathing grew shallow, Jake whispered, "You did it, buddy. You saved me." In the days that followed, Harris was arrested and charged with treason and attempted murder. Jake and Rex were both honoured with medals for valour. Their stories spread beyond the base, from enlisted barracks to civilian front pages, as the ultimate testament to friendship and integrity. Rex overcame his wounds, scars fading into proud reminders of the battle. Jake's shoulder healed, the bullet fragment a private badge of sacrifice. At last, they boarded a plane home, stepping onto familiar soil in a sunlit field near Jake's hometown. Under a wide blue sky, they ran together once more, soldier and dog, side by side, inseparable. Their journey had tested the limits of loyalty, but in the end it proved that true friendship knows no bounds. If this story warmed your heart and stirred your spirit, subscribe to our Paw Stories channel for more unforgettable tales of courage, loyalty, and the bond that transcends species.